The second example on modulus inequalities here, it says sketch the function f of x and hence solve the inequality. Modulus of 2x minus 5 is less than 3. So first of all, to sketch, we need to find our coordinates. So you put it into the calculator. We have our coordinates. We plot all of the points, just like I've done here. Then it says we need to solve the inequality. 2x minus 5 is less than 3. What that means is I need to draw the line y is equal to 3, which I've done here. And I've also labelled the function f of x. Then we need to find the values where they cross each other over. So we can see one answer is 4 and the other answer is 1. And then what I need to do is to find for which the function f of x is less than 3, and it's going to be under the curve. When is this function here under 3? So when is it less than 3? And it's less than 3 in between these values here. So it's less than 3 when x is greater than 1 and x is less than 4. So that would be my inequality at the end here. Okay, so that would be the inequality. Now, if you prefer to solve it using the algebra method, I'll just do that underneath here very quickly. If you prefer to solve using the algebra method, which a lot of people I think would prefer, so we've got 2x minus 5 is less than 3. I need to square both sides to get rid of all the negative values. So it's going to be 4x squared minus 20x plus 25 is less than 9. Take my 9 over and change the sign, so it's 4x squared minus 20x plus 16 is less than 0. And then it's just easier for myself for factorizing purposes to divide across by 4. So it becomes x squared minus 5x plus 4 is less than 0. And then I can solve it. 1, 4, minus, minus. So then you can see that x is equal to 1 and x is equal to 4, which I already had from up above, which we already seen. And then the final part is when I just draw a rough quadratic equation of that. We can draw it out nice and like that. Okay, so then we've got 1 and 4. It's going to be less than 0. So it's less than 0 is when it's under the curve. And when it's under the curve, it's between these values. And you can see it's going to be the same as the previous one. X is greater than 1 and x is less than 4. So you'll get the same answer whether you solve it using the algebra method or solve it using the graphical method up above. Some people prefer the algebra method. I think more people would generally prefer that one. It says draw the graph of f of x and draw the graph of the other f of x. I've just changed that to g of x just to make it a bit easier so they're not the same name. I found the points, and then it says solve the inequality algebraically and indicate graphically the solution set. Now, before I move on to the algebra part of that, what I wanted to do is actually show you what it looks like graphically. First of all, I've found my points for both functions. Now, it's up to yourself what range you prefer, but you can see, like, if I put in minus 4 in here, it was going to be a huge answer. If I put in 5 in here, again, it was going to be a lot bigger than it needed to be. So when you type it into the calculator, you can put it in a rough range between minus 5 and plus 5 and take out the ones that are the most important. With a bit of practice, you'll get used to that. Then what we have here is our actual two functions when we graph them. So you can see this is the f of x version, and then this is the g of x version. Now the reason why f of x is such a range, or it's kind of like such a wide function, is because I had to have a big space between each one to show off the g of x function a bit more. Okay, so we have our f of x function on the left, dx plus 3, and then I have my g of x function here. And what it's trying to get us to do is, first of all, find the points where they cross each other over, and then second of all, find the points where the f of x is less than the g of x function. What that means is where f of x is under the g of x. So the g of x here continues on forever. It is f of x is under the g of x function, but for this part here, f of x is actually above the g of x function. Now it does say to solve this algebraically. It's a bit easier to visualize when you can see it just algebraically instead. So that's what we're going to do underneath. And then we'll come back to our answers after. So to solve this one here, to get rid of the modulus, I need to square both sides. So it's going to be x squared plus 6x plus 9 is less than 9x squared minus 42x plus 49. And then we're going to take everything to the same side. I'm going to take everything to the left-hand side here. So it's going to be minus 8x squared plus 48x, and then minus 40, and is less than 0. So I've just taken all my x squared x's and numbers across, and then I can see I can divide by, not only I can divide by 8, but I can also actually divide by minus 8, because we always prefer a positive x squared. Now the one thing to remember, if I divide across by minus 8, don't forget to change the sign of everything first of all, but also don't forget to flip the inequality in the middle. So if you're changing the sign of the inequalities, you must change the sign in front of the x's, you must also flip the inequality. And then when we're solving this here, you can see our answers should be the same as the graphical method, where we have 1 and 5, minus and minus. So x is equal to 1, and then x is equal to 5. So there are my two x values. And then to find the actual inequality itself, I'm going to draw a rough diagram of it. We've got 1, we've got 5, and then since it's greater than 0, it's going to be above the curve. And where these were above the curve was the outsides. Now we just put a circle around each of those because it can't be equal to 1. So it's going to be x is less than 1 and x is greater than 5. Now to just coming back up to our answer and looking at the graphs, you can see where that comes from. X is less than 1. Sorry, just need to pull it down a bit further. X is less than 1. So here's my 1, here's my 5. X is less than 1. So everywhere from here onwards, g of x is bigger than f of x. And then if I continue this graph on as well here, you would see g of x will get really, really big on the right-hand side. And then f of x is going to be under it. So it's x is greater than 5. So there are my answers for that solution. Now in general, in an exam, it'll generally come up as an algebra question and not a graphical question. But occasionally you'll see it has come up as a graphical question.